Picture this: a Roman emperor fighting as a gladiator in the Colosseum, convinced he's the reincarnation of Hercules. Another emperor tries to make his horse a government official. And one poor guy gets assassinated while literally taking a bathroom break during a war campaign. Welcome to the wildest political story ever told, the complete saga of all 80 Roman emperors who ruled for over 500 years. We're talking about the ultimate mix of military genius and spectacular madness, family drama that makes reality TV look tame, and enough backstabbing to fuel 1,000 Netflix series. From Augustus, who built the greatest empire in history, to little Romulus Augustulus, who watched it all crumble. Each of these rulers shaped our world in ways we still feel today. So hit subscribe if you're ready for the craziest history lesson you've ever heard. And let's dive into 5 centuries of absolute power, absolute corruption, and absolutely unforgettable characters.
This is the episode 5 of our long but definitely binge-worthy series on all 80 Roman emperors, where we explore the lives of emperors 41st to 50th. If you haven't watched the previous episodes on the first 40 Roman emperors, make sure you check it out in the pinned comment. Now, let's dive into our stories, starting with Emperor 41st, the one with a brotherly emperor, Quintillus.
Brief interlude of brotherly succession. Meet Emperor number 41, Quintillus. His brother of Claudius Gothicus ruled for about 17 days in 270 CE, representing the last attempt at family-based succession before the Illyrian emperors completely transformed imperial politics through merit-based selection. Marcus Aurelius Claudius Quintillus was proclaimed emperor by the Senate and some military units following his brother's death from plague, though his legitimacy was immediately challenged by other commanders who controlled larger armies and had better military reputations. His brief reign showed how meaningless dynastic claims had become when real power rested with whoever commanded the most soldiers. His ultra-brief time in power was entirely consumed by civil war against Aurelian, who'd been proclaimed emperor by Pannonian legions and was marching on Italy with veteran forces. Quintillus controlled Rome and senatorial approval, but lacked the military support necessary for survival during crisis periods when constitutional legitimacy meant nothing. His death in 270 CE came either through suicide when he realized his position was hopeless, or through assassination by troops who preferred joining Aurelian to facing certain defeat. Either way, his reign demonstrated that family connections meant nothing without superior military force during periods when armies determined political outcomes rather than whoever had better constitutional claims or senatorial approval.
From Illyrian soldier to restorer of the world, meet Emperor number 42, Aurelian. This provincial general ruled from 270 to 275 CE, earning his magnificent title through military campaigns that reunified the fragmented empire and established the methods future emperors would use to complete Rome's recovery. Lucius Domitius Aurelianus came from the same Balkan military culture that had produced Claudius Gothicus, representing the new breed of provincial soldiers who would dominate imperial politics for the next century. His proclamation by Pannonian legions demonstrated how soldier loyalties determine succession. Constitutional procedures had become meaningless compared to military effectiveness. His extraordinary achievements included defeating Queen Zenobia and reconquering the breakaway Palmyrene Empire in the east, crushing the independent Gallic Empire under Tetricus in the west, and successfully defending Italy against Germanic invasions. By 274 CE, he'd restored imperial unity for the first time since the 260s fragmentation, an incredible accomplishment. The crowning moment was his traditional triumph in Rome, parading captured enemies, including Zenobia and Tetricus, before cheering crowds who hadn't witnessed imperial victory processions for decades. This ceremony symbolically restored Roman confidence and imperial prestige, while demonstrating that the empire could still defeat its enemies when properly led. His death in 275 CE came through assassination by Praetorian officers during his Eastern campaign, allegedly because he'd threatened to punish corruption in the military bureaucracy. Even successful emperors weren't safe from palace conspiracies when they challenged entrenched interests or tried to reform institutional problems. Aurelian had proven that energetic military leadership could restore imperial unity and territorial integrity through superior generalship and strategic thinking. His methods would become the template for completing Rome's recovery, though his death showed that political survival required more than just military success.
From military restoration to senatorial interlude, meet Emperor number 43, Tacitus. This elderly senator ruled from 275 to 276 CE, representing the Senate's brief attempt to reassert civilian control over imperial succession after Aurelian's assassination, which worked about as well as you'd expect. Marcus Claudius Tacitus was allegedly chosen by senators after a 6-month gap following Aurelian's death, though this story of senatorial selection was probably propaganda covering what was actually another military coup by different army factions. At 75, he was among the oldest people ever to become emperor, which should have been a warning sign about his prospects. His brief reign focused on continuing Aurelian's policies of territorial consolidation and military reform, though his advanced age made him completely dependent on subordinates for actual leadership. His appointment of family members to military commands suggested he was thinking dynastically, despite all the constitutional rhetoric about senatorial authority. His main military campaign was against Gothic and Allan invasions in Asia Minor, where his forces achieved some tactical successes that maintained momentum from Aurelian's restoration efforts. However, his personal contribution was limited by physical weakness and complete lack of experience commanding armies in the field. His death in 276 CE during the Asian campaign was officially attributed to fever, though some sources suggested assassination by troops who wanted younger, more energetic leadership during ongoing military crises. Either way, his 6-month reign proved that age and constitutional legitimacy couldn't substitute for military credibility.
Tacitus had demonstrated that the Senate's influence over imperial succession was purely ceremonial by this point. Real power belonged to armies, regardless of constitutional procedures. His death would bring another brief dynastic attempt, but the pattern was clear. Only military competence could sustain imperial authority.
Brief attempt at brotherly succession. Meet Emperor number 44, Florian. This half-brother of Tacitus ruled for about 88 days in 276 CE, trying to continue his relative's policies while facing immediate challenge from militarily superior rivals who had better armies and strategic positions. Marcus Annius Florianus was proclaimed emperor by armies in Asia Minor following Tacitus' death, representing another attempt at family-based succession during a period when military merit increasingly determined imperial survival. His relationship to the previous emperor provided some legitimacy, but absolutely no guarantee of broader military support. His ultra-brief reign was entirely consumed by civil war against Probus, who'd been proclaimed emperor by Egyptian and Syrian legions and commanded veteran forces with better equipment and strategic positioning. The competition demonstrated how quickly soldier loyalty shifted when multiple claimants offered different advantages to their supporters. His military position collapsed when his own troops began deserting to Probus, who offered better prospects for advancement and had a superior military reputation from successful Eastern campaigns. Florian's inability to maintain basic soldier loyalty during civil war proved that family connections meant nothing without demonstrated competence. His death in 276 CE came either through suicide or assassination by his own men, ending another attempt at fraternal succession after less than 3 months in power. His defeat showed that dynastic relationships had become completely meaningless without superior military force and strategic advantages. Florian's brief reign marked another step in imperial evolution toward purely military selection, where constitutional claims and family connections yielded entirely to battlefield effectiveness and soldier preference. His death would bring Probus to power, a competent general who understood what actually mattered for imperial survival. From Eastern commander to imperial reformer, meet Emperor number 45, Probus. This Illyrian soldier ruled from 276 to 282 CE, continuing the empire's recovery through military campaigns and internal reforms, while making the fatal mistake of using armies for construction projects during peacetime. Marcus Aurelius Probus had commanded Eastern forces under previous emperors, building a military reputation that made him attractive to troops seeking effective leadership during continued external pressures. His proclamation by Syrian legions demonstrated how provincial armies now completely controlled imperial succession rather than any constitutional procedures. His remarkable achievements included suppressing rebellions in Gaul and Britain, defeating Germanic invasions across the Rhine, and implementing agricultural reforms that restored productivity in regions devastated by decades of warfare. He also pioneered settlement policies that integrated barbarian prisoners as farmers within the empire, rather than just enslaving them or killing them. The most controversial aspect of his reign was using soldiers for civilian construction projects during peacetime, building roads, draining swamps, and clearing forests, while maintaining military discipline and training. This policy kept armies occupied productively while improving imperial infrastructure, though it made him deeply unpopular with troops who preferred fighting to manual labor. His death in 282 CE came when soldiers at Sirmium murdered him during one of these construction projects, purportedly frustrated by being forced to dig ditches instead of fighting enemies. The mutiny was led by Carus, his Praetorian prefect, who was immediately proclaimed emperor by the same troops who just killed their previous commander. Probus had proven that imperial restoration required economic reconstruction and infrastructure development beyond just military victories. Though his death demonstrated that Roman soldiers remained fundamentally warriors who resented being treated like a labor force. His policies were sound, but his political instincts were terrible.
From Praetorian prefect to lightning victim, meet Emperor number 46, Carus. This experienced administrator ruled from 282 to 283 CE, achieving spectacular military success against Persia before meeting one of history's most unusual imperial deaths during the campaign that should have been his greatest triumph. Marcus Aurelius Carus had served as Probus's chief of staff before leading the mutiny that killed his boss, demonstrating how palace officials could still seize power through careful cultivation of soldier loyalty. His rise represented the continued dominance of military professionals over civilian politicians, though his administrative background made him more well-rounded than typical barracks emperors. His extraordinary achievement was successfully invading Mesopotamia and capturing the Persian capital Ctesiphon for the first time since Trajan's conquests nearly 2 centuries earlier. This victory restored Roman prestige in the east while bringing enormous wealth back to imperial coffers and proving that reformed Roman armies could still defeat traditional enemies decisively. The campaign's success was so complete that Persian resistance collapsed entirely, allowing Roman forces to advance deeper into enemy territory than any general since the early 2nd century. Carus had accomplished what Valerian, Gallienus, and others had failed to achieve through superior strategy, better logistics, and more effective army organization. His death in 283 CE was attributed to a lightning strike while campaigning beyond the Tigris River, though some people suspected assassination disguised as divine intervention. Whether natural disaster or human conspiracy, his sudden death ended the most successful Eastern campaign in decades, just when complete victory seemed within reach. Carus had proven that reformed Roman armies could still achieve spectacular victories against traditional enemies when properly led and supplied, though his mysterious death reminded everyone that imperial power remained precarious regardless of military success. His death would divide the empire between his 2 sons, and that division would create new problems. From Western heir to civil or casualty, meet Emperor number 47, Carinus. This son of Carus ruled the Western Empire from 283 to 285 CE, demonstrating genuine military competence before losing everything through civil war against his brother's successor and his own officer's betrayal. Marcus Aurelius Carinus and left to govern western provinces, while his father and brother campaigned in Persia, where he'd shown administrative skill and military competence by suppressing Gallic rebellions and maintaining frontier security. His position seemed secure until news arrived of both his father's mysterious death and his brother Numerian's suspicious demise in the east. His defining challenge was civil war against Diocletian, who'd been proclaimed emperor by Eastern armies following Numerian's death under questionable circumstances. The conflict represented another struggle between competing regional power bases, with Carinus controlling the wealthier western provinces, while Diocletian commanded the more militarized eastern forces. His military achievements during the Civil War were genuinely impressive. He defeated multiple usurpers in Britain and Gaul, while organizing effective resistance against Diocletian's invasion of his territory. The decisive Battle of the Margus in 285 CE initially favored Carinus, whose tactical skill nearly achieved victory despite facing strategic disadvantages. His death during the battle came not from enemy action, but through assassination by his own officers, who'd grown tired of his allegedly harsh leadership style and preferred accommodation with Diocletian to continued civil war. This betrayal cost him certain victory and control of the united empire. Carinus had demonstrated that military competence and administrative skill couldn't guarantee imperial survival when personal relationships with subordinates deteriorated beyond repair. His death would bring Diocletian to sole power, and that Eastern emperor was about to transform the Roman world more completely than anyone since Augustus.
From Eastern heir to mysterious corpse, meet Emperor number 48, Numerian. This younger son of Carus briefly ruled Eastern armies in 284 CE before his suspicious death during the retreat from Persia launched another imperial succession crisis that would bring the most transformative emperor since Augustus to power. Marcus Aurelius Numerianus had accompanied his father's spectacularly successful Eastern campaign and inherited command of victorious armies following Carus's death by lightning strike. His position seemed strong, given the campaign's military success and the enormous wealth captured from Persian territories. But something went very wrong during the journey home. His brief reign was consumed by organizing the complex Roman withdrawal from Mesopotamia, a logistical challenge requiring diplomatic skill to maintain Persian peace while transporting massive amounts of treasure and prisoners back to Roman territory. These responsibilities tested his administrative abilities during what should have been a victory celebration. The mysterious circumstances of his death during the retreat sparked immediate controversy. His body was discovered in his closed traveling litter after several days, with Praetorian prefect Aper claiming the emperor had been ill and avoiding public appearances to prevent panic among the troops who were deep in enemy territory. His death led directly to Diocletian's proclamation as emperor and Aper's immediate execution for allegedly murdering Numerian, though the evidence was purely circumstantial. Whether Aper was actually guilty or just a convenient scapegoat, his death eliminated the most obvious suspect, while legitimizing Diocletian's rise to power through righteous vengeance. Numerian's reign demonstrated how quickly imperial fortunes could change, even during successful military campaigns. From commanding victorious armies to mysterious death within months. His suspicious demise would bring to power the man who would solve the 3rd century crisis through the most comprehensive government reforms in Roman history.
From mysterious succession to systematic revolution, meet Emperor number 49, Diocletian. This Dalmatian soldier became emperor at age 39 in 284 CE and ruled for 21 years until his voluntary retirement in 305 CE. Transforming the Roman Empire through the most comprehensive administrative reforms in its entire history. Born with the name Diocles in a small Balkan town, he'd risen through military ranks to command the imperial bodyguard before being proclaimed emperor following Numerian's mysterious death. His first act was personally executing Praetorian prefect Aper for allegedly murdering the previous emperor, establishing his legitimacy through justice rather than just military force, a sign of the systematic thinking that would characterize his entire reign. His revolutionary achievements included creating the Tetrarchy system with 4 co-emperors, dividing the empire into manageable administrative districts, implementing comprehensive price controls, and launching the last great persecution of Christians. These weren't just policy changes. They represented complete reconstruction of imperial government to meet 3rd century realities. The masterstroke was his voluntary abdication in 305 CE, retiring to his palace at Split to grow vegetables while his succession system transferred power peacefully to designated heirs. No emperor had ever voluntarily given up absolute power, proving that even the most successful rulers could recognize when it was time to step aside and let institutions function. His retirement ended the crisis of the 3rd century and began what historians call the Late Empire, with new military, administrative, and economic systems that would govern Rome for the next 2 centuries. Diocletian had essentially refounded the empire through systematic innovation rather than just military conquest. The former peasant from Dalmatia had proven that individual genius could solve seemingly impossible systemic problems when combined with practical experience and a willingness to abandon traditional methods for effective alternatives. His reign would be remembered as the moment Rome adapted to survive in a changed world.
Co-emperor in revolutionary partnership, meet Emperor number 50, Maximianus. This Pannonian soldier ruled the Western Empire from 286 to 305 CE as Diocletian's trusted colleague, implementing tetrarchy reforms while managing military crises that required constant personal leadership and battlefield presence. Marcus Aurelius Valerius Maximianus had been Diocletian's military subordinate before being elevated to Augustus of the West, representing the practical partnership that made the tetrarchy system actually work. His appointment demonstrated how personal loyalty and military competence could create stable power-sharing arrangements when both partners prioritized imperial survival over personal ambition. His remarkable military achievements included crushing the Bagaudae peasant revolt in Gaul, defeating multiple Germanic invasions across the Rhine, and conducting successful campaigns in North Africa against Moorish tribes. These victories established the security that allowed civilian reconstruction throughout the western provinces, while proving the Tetrarchy could handle multiple simultaneous threats. The defining challenge was the Carosian Revolt in Britain, where a Roman admiral had declared independence and controlled the English Channel with superior naval forces. Maximianus's eventual reconquest of Britain demonstrated Roman ability to recover lost territories through patient strategic planning and coordinated military operations across multiple theaters. His abdication in 305 CE alongside Diocletian marked the successful conclusion of the First Tetrarchy, proving that voluntary retirement could work when both emperors trusted their institutional frameworks. However, his later attempt to return to power would destabilize the very system he'd helped create and demonstrate the dangers of imperial nostalgia. Maximianus had shown that the Tetrarchy could function effectively when all participants prioritized imperial stability over personal desires, although his post-retirement activities would prove that even successful systems depended more on individual character than institutional design.
And that was the story of the 10 Roman emperors for today. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And stay tuned for the next episode of 10 Roman Emperors on our channel, Drowsy Rome.